Ready when you are, Christy.
Okay, great. So Sally has kindly done the introduction for me, so I'll skip my notes for that. The purpose of today's webinar is to provide an overview of our updated event funding resources, as well as go through the new application form, which is powered by SmartyGrants. So we'll be running through that and identifying what changes have been made and answering any questions that you might have as well. I think we just had Steve Emmett join as well. Hi, Steve.
Hi, guys.
Hi. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to share my screen. Just one second. Okay, so to start at the very beginning, so we've done a bit of fixing up, I guess you could say, of the council website just to make sure when you do search event funding on the website, you are getting the most up-to-date relevant information. So this is the new resource page that we have for Destination Event Funding Program. As you will recall, we've also had this information previously on our kiama.com website. So that's been taken off at the moment just so everyone has the one place to find all the documentation. So you'll see if you go to hosting an event in Kiama, there's a little bit of information there, but then your link here will link you right back to the page that we're on at the moment. There's still the area here for you to fill in the events area signage form as well. But for all other resources and information, just refer to the council website. So just popping back there. So some key things I'll just point out on here at first is the events team's contact number and phone number. So I'm one of the events coordinators here. Helen is our other events coordinator, and Sally, which I'm sure everybody knows, is as our manager. So we're all available to assist you with any part of your application at any stage. In particular, what can we assist you with? Discussing event concepts, checking the events calendar for date availability, guidance on event promotion, packaging ideas, or partnerships, guidance navigating the application form, or any support that you need throughout the planning process once the sponsorship is awarded. So, obviously, in getting the right documentation you might need into council, which can be a bit time consuming sometimes. So, we're here to assist you with that as well. So the website just kind of goes into a brief description of the grant and what we are looking for, what type of applications we're looking for. So a very brief explanation of what a destination event is that it's an event that attracts people to our area from outside our area. It's an event that is located within the LGA, and it's an event that focuses on promoting our destination. For further detail on that, you can see the event categories as well, which is linked in our guidelines too, and that kind of takes you into, sorry, had here into a bit more detail about what classifies a destination event and also a major event as well. So I thought I would take you through just the step-by-step process here, which will kind of link us to various resources and the application form as well. So firstly, the first step, of course, is to read your funding events and funding guidelines. So that will open to this documentation right here. So we have been reviewing this and enhancing this as of recently. So this is all up to date. So obviously it gives you a little overview of what the purpose is, the references, strategic plan, definitions, an overview. So again, like I said before, just to be checking the event categories to make sure that your event either fits into a major or a destination event, making sure that you're familiar with the funding types. So you've got financial support, which for some examples of that is the marketing, a draw card, entertainment or speakers, and in-kind support, which an example is the waste or reserve or venue hire that you might need as well. Just to make sure there's a link here that connects to our council's fees and charges. So to make sure that you're checking that, which is the most updated information here of what those fees and charges are, and that's updated annually as well. So I won't go into too much detail there. Just pop back to where I was. Okay, So once you've checked that, you just want to review your funding eligibility, and just make sure that you do fall into this category. So there's a lot of criteria here, and also some information that what we've added in this year of what would not be eligible. So I won't go through every point there, but in particular. It's that the main points I just point out is that the application needs to be submitted at least 3 months prior to your start date. The event needs to be based in the LGA, and the event attracts overnight visitation to be held outside the peak visitation periods of Kiama. So then to familiarize yourself with the application process. So we've put together this handy graph this year just to make the process a bit more visual and understandable. So we will have 2 rounds of funding this year in May and in December. So the May round of funding, as you're aware, has already opened. That open period will be for 6 weeks. After the 6 weeks closing date, there'll be a 4-week review process, which includes our internal grants committee reviewing the applications, making their recommendations to council, and then council endorsing that, or making their own recommendations based on the feedback that they've got. So that's kind of a 4-week process. Within 2 weeks of that decision being made by council, we will let the successful applicants know. We will also arrange a meeting with you, either in person or virtual, whatever works for you, to kind of run through the funding agreement, which we will get signed at that point as well. In order to get your first installment, there will be a marketing plan that will be due. Once that's approved, you can invoice us for your first 50% installment. Then obviously we're here to support and guide you through the process of staging your event. And then after your event, once the event's a post-event report is submitted and approved, then we will process the final 50% payment. So in a nutshell, that's kind of what the process is. And of course, this information goes into a bit more detail there. So the next important part in the funding criteria would be our assessment criteria. So it's important to review each category. So we've done a lot of work this year in making sure that our application form directly corresponds to the assessment criteria to make the form a bit more easy to follow, and also for our assessors to be able to directly relate your answers to the assessment criteria. So note that what the largest weighting area is as well. So we've got 30%, which is allocated to our tourism and destination profiling. So just to make sure that kind of these points is in particular, you're prepared to answer those in your application. Um, and one other point I'll point out as well, just something new that we've added into here, is how your event kind of connects to our hero experiences. So there's a link to that in the application form, which I'll show you as well, but that's kind of an important thing to think about before you start your application. As we go through the form, you'll kind of see how all these criteria link up anyway, so I won't go into too much detail of that just yet. So then you just want to make sure you're reviewing your funding agreement and obligations. So we understand that, when you have an event that might only get like a say $1,000 funding to an event that is $20,000 funding, it's a bit unfair to expect all the deliverables of the 20K for the 1K. So we've kind of altered this a little bit just to give you a bit more guidance on kind of what we kind of expect, especially from like a marketing standpoint. And this kind of is a pretty good overview too of what is in that funding agreement that you sign once your sponsorship has been awarded, which we'll run through with you and support you in any kind of areas that we can as well. In particular, we just wanted to point out how important listing your event on the ATDW site is. It's really important because it feeds into Sydney.com, Destination New South Wales, Kiama.com.au, and other platforms such as The Fold. So it's really important that you get your event up there as soon as you can and keep it updated as well so that the new information can pull through to those resources as well. Um, nearing towards the end of the funding guidelines now, and the next part is just the reporting. So just to review the reporting requirements ahead of time, because that will help you plan certain elements in your event of how to kind of collate the data that you need to report back on. Our recommendation is, like a post-event report, questions to be asked through a ticketing platform as well, making sure you're collating the results from your marketing efforts too. So I guess in particular, the data that we kind of look for is what the attendee numbers are, the demographics, and the tourism impacts, as well as the results of marketing. So when you are designing any questionnaires, you might have or questions that you are asking through a ticketing platform, just to keep those areas in mind, because that will make your post-event reporting much more smoother and easy to obtain. We've also included a section of frequently asked questions that might answer a lot of questions that you do have, such as is funding including the GST? How many rounds will there be? Does the event need to be free to the public? What classifies as a peak visitation period? All those kind of things as well that might assist you in preparing your application. Okay, so I'll pop back to our website here, and that was a very long step one. But after you've reviewed that, step two is basically to plan and budget your event. So to determine your event plan and budget, including your concept, operational plan, marketing plan, and incoming and outgoing costs. So we've got various supportive documents and resources that you can use on your page to help you here. We've got the toolkit, which is a great resource to kind of have an overview of what a destination event is, all the different sites that we have, kind of what thresholds you need for public toilets, for example, what's filming, camping, what our policies are on that, the locations, etc. So this is a really good resource to start with. Then you've also got resources such as a marketing plan template, a budget template, risk assessment template, those types of things to support you in your planning as well. So we hop back here and we go back to step number 3, which is submit. So complete and submit the online application. So we suggest reviewing the application first, just familiarize yourself with the questions, and with a note that we have changed the structure of the questions and the content of the questions this year. So that's why we have this handy link here that will take you to an example of the online application form. Oops, sorry, all the way down the end, which is here. So I'll just finish going through the steps of the process, and then we will hop back to this and we'll go through this in further detail. And then there's also some helpful links on the SmartyGrants platform, which is where, sorry, this is where this link links to, is here. This is actually from the software developers, so a help guide and frequently asked questions as well, which can kind of help you in navigating the system. But again, just reach out to us and we're here to support you with that as well. So step 4 is then the evaluation. So just a quick overview of that, that all submitted applications will be reviewed by the internal grants assessment panel, and they'll make those recommendations to council. Step 5 will be they'll be presented to council for them to pass the verdict of adopting the recommendations, or to reject or make their own recommendations as well. Then the notification will be sent out to you, the terms and the marketing plan and the event report, which we kind of went through in the graph before, so I won't go into that again. Okay, so the part we've all been waiting for is completing the online application form. So before I get into that, I did just want to run through some handy hints for you as well. So there is a section of this in sorry, let me just close the pages that I don't need right now. In the funding guidelines. So there is a section here that I just past before in terms of how to apply. So there is a link to that application form here, and there's just some points here of some handy hints that will help you. I just pulled out a few of these handy hints to identify in this session. So yes, to note that Kiama Council has transitioned to the Smarty Grants portal for all our funding applications, and you can access this form via the Apply Now button in this document or on the website page here as well. Um, you can preview the form or download the form before you commence the application, which we suggest. You will be required to set up an account to commence the application process if you haven't used the Smarty Grants platform before. And you don't have to fill it out at that point. You can save and close your application at any time. Important to note that the system does tend to time out after about 20 seconds. So just make sure that you are continually updating your form as you go. I haven't had too much major problems with that so far, and I have kind of pushed that 20 seconds to the limit. So it's just more just making sure like you are sort of saving as you go. You will be required, sorry, what was that point? Multiple people can work on the application, but they do need to use the same login as well. So if you've got a few event organizers, just make sure you're logging in using the same one and that only one person is in there at the same time. Otherwise, obviously, things won't save. All your document uploads must be saved on your computer or storage device and can be uploaded by a drag and drop. So the maximum file size is 25 megabytes, but Smarty Grants suggests about to keep it under 5 megabytes if you can. Ensure you carefully review your application before you submit it, as once you do submit, that you can't edit or upload any more documents. Unfortunately, we can't recall a submission or anything like that in the back end. So you just need to make sure that that's at the point that you want it at before you submit. You will receive a confirmation email after you have submitted with your application attached. If you do not receive this, quickly just check your junk folder to see if it's gone in there. And if it's not in there, then just contact us and we can see in the back end if it's actually gone through as a submission or perhaps there was a browser error or something like that that didn't make it go through. Okay, so once you're ready to apply, obviously click apply now, and that will take you to the form. So this is that will take you to this page here where you can either start a submission, preview the form, or download the preview form. A lot of text here, but it's more just an overview from the Smarty Grants of how to kind of navigate the form. There's a link back to the funding guidelines if you do need to get back to that at any stage. And those help guides I was talking about before are right there. Previewing the form or downloading the form. So I've pressed download the form, which has given me this option here. So you can print that out and have a read through that before you attempt to fill it out. Um, so, the first part, section one, is the applicant details. This is pretty self-explanatory. There's not much that has changed here. Just, name, details, your position within your group organization, kind of the role that you have within organizing the event, contact information, any social media accounts you might have, if it's based in the event, if it's based in the LGA. There's a little bit of a tool in the system now that you can look up an 88 ABN to help you with that if you want to do that. And we've also included a category where you can put in your ASIC number if that's more applicable to your organization as well or group. The next section here is the event details. So we have changed a little bit in this section. Obviously, you got your name there, a brief description of the event. So this question actually encompasses a couple of questions that was in the previous form. So it's please provide a description of the event, list the objectives and what makes it unique. So in particular, the objectives and what makes it unique are directly related back to the assessment criteria. So that'll be easy for our assessors to match from there. Play, play focus to the unique part. That is definitely something that is a criteria in the assessment criteria. So that's something that they would be looking for. We've also, the great thing about this form too, it gives you a lot of hint data. So we've tried to expand on this hint data as much as we can to give you some guidance on how to answer those questions. Um, So the hint data there here obviously is talking about that you should be talking about the components of your event, if it's a ticketed or free event, what target market you're going for, any key stakeholders and suppliers you have. It also guides you in terms of your objectives, and of course you can list whatever your objectives might be. But if that does link back to the objective that we have identified of creating a thriving, high quality event destination in our strategic and tourism event plan, that would be receive top marks for that. So that's an important bit of hint data there for you as well. Um, so as I said, that was linking back to criteria that was in the tourism value and destination profiling section of the assessment criteria. This section has also been enhanced to go into further detail about your previous funding received, what external funding you have secured, and how the funding may positively impact your event, and if the funding will enable your event to run in the future. So these questions, there is a few of them that are here that goes into a bit more detail than just the question of what have you received funding before, yes or no. And that's because that is directly linked back to the assessment criteria that we have in the extent of need for funding assessment criteria. And I'll just, sorry, while I'm doing this, I will just pop back to that page. So that's this section here, which is 20%. So the next section we have is destination profiling. So we've improved the questions relating to this section as it carries the most weighting. We've created a question that directly relates to your event's connection to the Kiama's four hero experiences, which I briefly touched on earlier. So we do have a link here to our tourism, our top experiences and how your event might relate to that. I'll just open that quickly actually so we can have a quick view. So, hero experience one, the seaside lifestyle of Kiama. Experience two, our dramatic coastline, um, our views and kind of escarpment walks and that kind of area there, and the region as a perfect destination for families. So, kind of referencing back to one of those hero experiences of Kiama would definitely be beneficial to your, oops, sorry, to your application. So we ask for an overview of your marketing strategy here, in addition to the option to upload a marketing plan. So this hint data kind of really details what we're kind of looking for in that regard as well. So how your event will be promoted, will it attract media coverage? Is it social media, newspaper, editorial? What locations will be targeted? What engagement opportunities you have identified as well. So uploading a marketing plan isn't mandatory. It is a step that will be required if you are awarded funding. But at this point, if you just kind of wanted to go into detail about what your plan is going to be at this point, then that is sufficient as well. So all the questions that I kind of just went through then, so that's directly related to the tourism and destination section of the profiling. So as I said before, it carries the most weight, so it's quite an important section, that one. The next section I'll go through is the economic impact. So we've also kind of restructured the form that you may have noticed to kind of be in order of what the assessment criteria is to. There were a few areas where it does kind of correlate to like a section in another section, but we've tried to make it as streamlined as possible and kind of ask you the most important questions first, followed by the next category, next one after that. So the economic impact. So there is a bit, there's two ways you can go on this page. So the first question we ask is, have you run this event in the Kiama LGA previously? If you answer yes, we're kind of looking for some statistical data of your previous event. If you've answered no, we're kind of looking for what your predictive data would be. And that kind of covers these questions here. So if you had ticked yes, you will see these questions questions, which is what was the total attendee numbers? Tell us about the demographics. What was the estimated percentage of attendees that traveled more than 50 Ks? And what is the estimated length of stay for those visitors? So um, this question, it was previously asked, what is the expected expenditure of visitors? We've kind of looked at that as a team and recognized that this type of data would be quite difficult for our event organizers to obtain. So by asking the questions in particular of what attendee numbers and length of stay that your previous event or predicted event will have, we can use some forecasting software that we have here at council to add that to your submission, which we at the event coordinators here will do. And that kind of gives a more of accurate spending based on data that the system holds. So yeah, so we've changed that little bit there. So we've also added the question of how will your event partner with other local businesses? So sorry, that was what the previous question was, and we've changed this to how will your event provide an economic benefit to the local area? And the hint data in that kind of goes into expanding on engaging with businesses and suppliers to extend their length of stay, just to give you a bit more of a broader category to connect that back to the economic benefit of your event. We've also added a question in of how will you monitor and evaluate the objectives and success of your event activity, just to get you kind of thinking about, how you're going to record this data as well, so that it doesn't get to the end of your event and you're not sure how to get that data post event. It's just a way to kind of start thinking about that as well. So everything that I just went through then directly correlates back to the economic section of the assessment criteria, which is the weighting of that is 25%. The next part of the form is the community benefit. So the questions in this section have mostly remained the same, just with a revision of wording and just what the additional hint data is. An example of this is the first question of how will your event benefit the local community, and how will you engage with them, as the hint data asks for actual evidence of this local support, so that you might mention through that. We've also combined two of the questions into one, asking how will your event acknowledge and promote cultural diversity, and the hint data in here refers to, for example, how will you engage with youth and cultural groups, where previously that was two separate questions, but we thought just including that in the one question was sufficient. The next section here is capacity and capability. Um, so for capacity and capability, we can basically assess this through your planning, through your budget, through your event plan, those types of things. Um, we've provided a bit more detail in regards to your budget here, like what type of information to include in your income and expenses, and a link back to the council fees and charges as well. We've also given you two options here for the budget. So you can either upload your financial budget as we've asked for previously, or you can use this handy tool. And applications that I have received so far actually have been using the tool, which is great. Just if you haven't got to that point yet where you put a budget together, but you know from previous years or kind of in your head what the budget is going to be, you can just kind of input that data rather than having to put together an official budget as well. So the software has a calculation. It will calculate what your income is, your total expenditure is, and what your variation is at the end. So you can always see if you are in the negative or positive at that point too. Um, so we have also added some questions for your event management plan here, and kind of put some hint data too of what kind of that should include, so that we can assess your capability and capacity to do that. Um, so with your event management plan, that will pretty demonstrate your capability to manage it. It'll ask for information such as what your staffing and resource management is. So information like that is beneficial to us in assessing that. Kind of how far along you are in the planning process also demonstrates your capability, like if you need a DA, if that's in process already, if you have reserved the hall or the reserve hire that you need, if you've done a risk assessment, if you've got a public liability statement, those type of things kind of just demonstrate that you either are quite experienced in running this event and so are definitely capable of doing it, or that you have those planning parts in place as well. So then we have the declaration. We have improved this a little bit to just make sure that our event organisers have read and understood the funding guidelines, as it's quite a thorough resource of information there that will really help you in filling out this form. And there's also a section for that you as the applicant to sign off on the form now, which wasn't previously there. And the last bit, if you feel up to it by the point you get to this point in the application form, is just to provide us a bit of feedback. We're always trying to continually improve how we're putting together our documentation and forms, and what we can do to better support you as event organisers. So any comments you might have of how you found the process, the form, the guidelines will help us in the future as well. So that's a bit of an overview of the SmartyGrants form, the funding guidelines as well, the assessment criteria and how that links back. I'll open it up now to see if anyone has any questions that Sal and I can answer for you. Did we get any questions through the chat, Sal?
No, none yet, but please go ahead. Steve, I'll go ahead, Henry.
So I was just going to say, no questions for me. Just want to say thank you very much. I think it's really important that we do these things because it really helps educate us, especially for funding and everything. So I just want to say thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
You've done a great job, Christy. Steve, you've completed the application before, and I know that you've had an attempt again. Did you have any specific questions as you've moved through, or any feedback that might help anyone else?
I actually found it a lot easier this time around.
Great.
I think, as you touched on, Christy, some of those hints are actually really helpful because, sometimes you sort of go off on a tangent thinking you're answering something, and then the feedback comes back after the fact that, maybe you missed the point a little bit. So those, I'll just encourage everyone to, really focus on those hints that you've got, after each of those sort of questions, because they're exactly what you guys are looking for. And it just it's a great tool to use. And I'd echo Henry's comments there. I think that was really worthwhile. Whether you've done an application before or not, I think it's a really good little setup you've got going here.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Yeah, we've really tried to make sure that every single question or hint data that we have in that form is directly relating back to the criteria as well. So I guess we found in the previous form that questions were being asked that didn't really connect back too well or could have been phrased a bit better. So if you feel like you're having to answer quite a few questions in the one question, just keep in mind that it is related back to every point that we've got in that criteria.
Yeah.
Excellent, guys. And if I can just reiterate that we've got 2 event coordinators at the moment. Hopefully we can keep Christy, but we do have Helen as well here on a full-time basis. And their role is to really make things as easy as possible to make sure that we get the best economic benefit for the Kiama area and for our local businesses. So we're here to help is, I guess, the message. So if you have questions about the application, if you have questions unrelated to the funding process but about events, or some crazy harebrained idea that you might have, we can steer you on the right track. So we like to think of ourselves as the yes team in council. So come to us, we can be a sounding board and we can help navigate the process. Obviously, if it's too harebrained of an idea, we'll let you know quickly. But we really do encourage you to, even in the concept stage, while it's just a seed in your mind, just put it to us and we can help you develop it.
Yeah, I I think that we're a very close team as well. So when you're talking to one of us, you're talking to all of us as well. So don't feel that if you do talk to me and I only work part-time, they can only talk to me on the days that I'm here. Sal and Helen are fully across. We don't really have one conversation with anyone that we don't discuss with each other, just to make sure that we're covering everything and got everyone's perspectives on it. So yeah, we're here to support you as a team.
Right, well, if no one else has any questions, I might stop the recording. Thank you so much for joining us on a Friday. The sun's shining, it's shaping up to be a nice weekend. So for those that are working, all the best. For those that aren't, enjoy the weekend. And please reach out if there's anything else we can help you with.
Thanks
Thanks,
guys.
guys.
Great. Thank you, everyone. Bye.